how can we be agile at scale, both where the enterprise strategy is made, where the whole budgeting and executive management level is operating and figuring out where do we need to go and how do we need to change, how that can be coordinated with value streams on how we want to make the changes, and finally the program level where these changes are actually implemented. So with software we know that the people setting the budgets or the people who often do a lot of the coordination of thinking about who needs to be involved are actually not the ones developing the systems. So the real changes are happening down here. That's where the teams are. That's where we build systems, maintain systems, and so on and so forth. But in a big company, you do have a lot of things going on besides the teams, and that's where SAFe has a model, a framework to help you organize this and manage this in an agile manner. As you can see, there are many roles outlined in the framework. So most of you, if you work with Scrum already, you know the team level. It's all the same thing. It's a product owner, it's a Scrum Master, some team members working maybe with Scrum. I don't know if there's DSDM, maybe you can use that as well, and Kanban, but on team level, you work in an agile manner. And then on program, we have what we call the Agile Release Train, and that is one of the important constructs in SAFe. And the point is that we have the same as a team, which is cross-functional. On the train, we have a team of teams. So normally you would have maybe 5 to 9 people in the team, and on the train you would have X number of teams together who would collaborate, and the train would be of a size approximately between 50 and 125 people. So an agile release train is basically the same as an agile team. It's just a team of teams. So this is the basic, you can say, execution construct in SAFe. This is where we plan and implement and organize the changes we're going to do to the systems down here. And then on the upper levels is where we do the strategic thinking and the changes we want to make for the business on a longer level, and make it clear how we're going to break that down so we eventually can actually give it to a team of teams who can implement it in a self-organizing manner. So the things that apply for a normal team also applies for the train. So the train is just a team of teams, and the train will have Scrum, the train will have plannings, the train will have demos, just like a normal Scrum team will do. We only have 45 minutes, so I can't go in and explain everything on how this framework works. It is normally, you can say, a 2-day training for getting the introduction and a bit more if you want to know a bit more. But are there any questions or things just at the top of your head now where you think, hey, what does this mean? How does this work? Or something that you think is unclear. So I don't expect you to understand each single thing in the picture. But the basic concepts of having a team of teams together to execute, and that the things on a strategic level that the company want to do up on the portfolio is basically broken down into smaller deliverables, which eventually is broken down and implemented by X number of agile release trains. That's, you can say, the very basics of the constructs, and then it is founded on normal agile and lean principles, on systems thinking, and all other good ideas that help companies today deliver good quality in a fast and responsive manner. So in that sense, there's nothing new in the framework, and that's what I really like about it. It's not that they go out and say, hey, we have invented a completely new thing. They say, we have already a lot of good methodologies we can use in different places, and what we perhaps need is a little bit of governance around how do we make this work on a bigger level. So all the good things we know on team level, still applies. And it's really used on the higher levels as well. But there are also additional things on the higher level which you don't have on team level, because the teams are, you can say, on an operational, tactical level, and some of the strategic stuff is not where you're delegating that down to be taken on the team level. Yes?
Questions in Spanish?
Yes, I am prepared.
The microphone.
¿Podría decirse que para aplicar SAFe las organizaciones tendrían que tener un nivel de madurez X en Scrum o en metodologías ágiles? ¿O puede pasar que una empresa no tenga un nivel de madurez y pueda aplicar SAFe? ¿Es prerequisito tener un nivel de madurez específico?
Were there some people who didn't understand the question in Spanish? All right, so as I understood, the question was, is there any requirement that the companies and teams who actually apply the framework, do they need to have agile knowledge skills already in place, or can you start if you are working in a completely different manner? Yes. So according to Scaled Agile Framework and the people behind it, there is no need for you to have any experience beforehand. So you can be a company doing the heaviest waterfall method you like, and we can transition you into SAFe if that's what needs to be. This said, and this is one of the points that I'll come back to later in the presentation, I think there is a part, the amount of changes you're doing in a short period of time can cause problems by the sheer volume of changes. And that, of course, means that for teams and organizations who might already be very experienced in Agile on this level, implementing a program level is only a very small change and very easy to do. So if you're not doing any of this, then you need to start doing this, and that becomes a bigger thing. So the framework has suggestions for how to do it, and you can do both things. It's not a prerequisite. Of course, you can also say, and that's maybe where I also think the cases are a bit funny, that maybe in some situations it can be an advantage to have no experience, because then you're just learning these agile methodologies for the first time. Because sometimes when you come in and people have done this for 5 years, they already have their ways of working. So they don't want to change, because they're already agile. And then you get into a very different discussion, whereas if people say, well, we're not agile, so we just want to do it, okay, then you just go do it. And that can actually, in some cases, be a benefit. Good question. Any other questions? Yeah. Do I need the thingy?
No.
No, okay.
I will speak in English. Hi.
Hi.
One more time. So, I can't get the main point of the methodology. So, what specific advantage it brings to me? For example, if I'm using Scrum, why would I choose Scaled Agile Framework? Because you said that if you are using extreme programming, Scrum or whatever methodology, you may continue using it. So it means that this framework is something like a complementary stuff. When I try to, I don't know, but scale it for a large organization. At the same time, the name is lean here, yeah? Yeah, from my perspective, the framework doesn't seem that lean from the slide, but what do you think about it? So,
yes.
What is the main specific thing that's for me to choose this instead of other several methodologies?
I think that's a very, very good question to ask, and that's actually one of the things I'd like to achieve with this presentation, that we actually think about these things, because the way I was introduced to this framework, and which I actually liked about it, was that the trainer started to say, the first rule of scaling Agile is don't scale. If you at all can avoid it, don't scale. But sometimes you are in places where you need to scale. And then the framework can help you scale. But by all means, if you can avoid it, it is creating extra layers of things to manage what you're doing. But that's also sometimes the problem when you have large organizations. You are scaling. And then Scrum on team level doesn't provide that much guidance for the people who are trying to be maybe on value stream level. How is it they're going to collaborate with the teams? And that's where you get the value from SAFE to outline much more how the teams are actually collaborating together in a coherent entity called the Agile release train, how you can coordinate between Agile release trains. So then you build big solutions together, but you still try to decouple the things so you can keep the small atomic cross-functional teams who can actually deliver value. And that's the guidance this framework tries to give you. But by all means, if you're 20 people, do not use this framework. If you have a small group of people, even 50 people, I would say really be careful. So first rule of thumb, and I like that when I went to the training, was by all means, don't scale. Only if you cannot survive without scaling, then start thinking about it. And I like a framework that, keep it simple. Don't do this. But realizing also that you have companies where you have 500 system developers working on one system, and how do you organize that with Scrum? That gives challenges. So very good question. Okay, yes, I have to speed up. The key element of SAFE is also the PI planning, program increments. So a team is working in iterations of a certain duration, maybe 2-week iteration or 4-week iteration. The train is also having an iteration. That would usually be between 8 and 10 weeks. The team has its sprint planning. The train has what we call a program increment planning. And the new thing here is everyone meets face to face and plan together in the train. So people on the train are seen as one team, a team of teams, and they get together to coordinate what is it we're going to do in our individual teams over the next 8 to 10 weeks. And maybe they have a roadmap for a bit longer out in the future. So bringing between 50 to 125 people together physically, if you're distributed over multiple locations, is not a cheap event. So therefore, it has to be really sensible to do this. And the times I've tried it, it actually adds a lot of value. If you haven't been sitting with the people you work with before, being together and planning together actually gives a lot of value. And that is one of the key components in the SAFE framework. But of course, if you just put 80 people in a room and say, plan, then it's not going to happen. So there's a lot of things you need to prepare before and after, and getting the teams ready, especially also if they're not used to Agile methodologies, there's a lot of training that comes in first. And that's why, a little bit back to the question before, can you just launch? What SAFE says is a very simple method they recommend for launching. It is overly simplified because, of course, there's a lot of other stuff in. But basically, you have your change agents, you train them, you train your managers, you train your teams, and then you gain very good results. And they have a quick launch plan for how you can do this in a week. 1 week, if you want, you can actually decide, we want to implement this framework, and they have a methodology to take you through the 5 days, and then you're up and running. The places I've been involved in this, we haven't done it in 5 days. So I haven't experienced how it works, but others have done it. I will not recommend the 5 days, at least also the things I've seen. I would take more time to prepare it. But some people do it with great results. So in a way, I like, again, a framework saying, well, we don't need to sit and think about it for 2 years. We can actually quite quickly give it a go, maybe not the full organization, but for a selected period in our organization or selected department. We can very quickly try this out and get it going. So, I have two cases that I will talk about where we have done this. The first case is we were building a new system. It was integrated with existing systems, but we actually had to start from scratch building the front end towards the customers that they were going to use. And the setup was that we had teams organized as feature teams, as cross-functional teams, and we had them distributed here, as you can see, over 3 different countries in the Nordics. We had some shared teams, meaning that the system team is the team that takes care or focuses on the build environment, the build pipeline, continuous integration, all sorts of tooling to support the teams down here. Then we had a CX, a customer experience team, and they were responsible for all, you can say, usability aspects of the design of the graphical user interface. Product management are basically the Uber product owners. So the product owners are in the teams, and on the train you have a product manager who are the one guiding the train and helping the POs to implement in their teams. And then you have release management, and we had a team called transformation management, because this was the first time that we were doing this in this place, and there was a specific team of people who would prepare the launch of the next release train. And they were called the transformation team and helped also in general try to make this work. To support all this, we also had communities of practice, and we had quite a lot to focus on different topics. But in essence, the teams here, they were empowered to make their own decisions, empowered and accountable for delivering, and we just needed this new front end, and it all looked like a pretty good place to start. Also, we went by that model in the sense we trained the people in the methodology. We took some couple of months to prepare for the first face-to-face PI planning event, and that worked out pretty well as a starter, but we did face some problems here about making sure that we have a uniform, consistent UI on our system. So we had 5 teams now delivering to the same system independently, but the customer experience still has to have some consistency. So you can't see it's 5 different teams doing whatever they want to do. The natural, normal thing about getting more people to deliver together as a team of teams, building the solution. Are we all ready, or is it only the one team that's ready and the rest are not? Can we then release? Those were the things that SAFE should also help us address and give us some guidance about. So SAFE has good practices about saying, well, there's nothing new here, we're agile, we're building in quality from the beginning, so just do the normal things you're doing on the team level, continuous integration and technical debt, make sure you don't have too much of that, refactor, and all the other good practices that you do. We also have this system team, and in SAFE, that is where you could put some of the system testing in the sense of end-to-end testing, that team, which is a shared team, actually takes care of some of the quality assurance across the teams. Then SAFE has this concept of cadence or rhythm and synchronization. So when you're 5 people working together on a thing, you might be drifting a bit away from each other. Then you meet at the daily stand-up and you synchronize, and then you work another day where you might be drifting a little bit, and then you come back. The same goes for the train. So you have we had 5 teams, so you work for 1 iteration. We had 2 weeks, and in that period, the teams might be drifting a little bit. What are we actually doing? And then after the iteration, we come together and we demo and we synchronize. What are you doing? Is it fitting with what we're doing? Of course, you have daily synchronization because you're supposed to be a team of teams, but this is one of the mechanisms to actually make people run sort of in the same direction, that we have some regular places where we actually come back and synchronize to make sure we're not drifting too far away from each other. And then just like you have team demos, on the train you have system demos, and you get feedback, so that should actually keep you on track. So make sure, are we going in the right direction? And for us, that was a big problem to actually get a working system out. So this about UX, usability, and actually, you can say, functionality. That was really hard for us to find a balance between who decides what. Are we building for usability, or are we building for the business rules that we also need to adhere to? The product owner was not the UX specialist, so there were sort of two people always pulling in the team trying to say what is it they need to develop. So we tried very much to get collaboration between the standard teams and the shared teams so that they could, as part of refining what the teams were going to do, get this shared understanding to make it consistent. And then for the testing, in order to get the teams to deliver a solution together, our system team was heavily overloaded just trying to get the environments up and running, get the builds to go, the build pipelines defined, get automated tests defined. And that was really difficult with these self-organizing teams because they each want to do something different. And often this is where you want to take some more strategic decisions and you need to centralize that a bit more. But what we ended up doing here is we said, okay, our community of practice is not just sharing knowledge. This is actually where we will do decisions across the teams on how we are going to do some things together. So the teams are still part of the decision process and figuring out together how we want to solve it, but we needed to have a central place where we knew things would come together and have this cross-coordination. So that just didn't happen automatically in the way we had implemented SAFe. And also, for example, end-to-end testing. So the teams would deliver each their part of the system, well tested, they thought. And then, of course, when we put it all together, was it hanging together? Often not. And when you actually, you go to the team and say, well, it's not hanging together, but they're like, yeah, but my part does. And that's not the solution, but it's a problem that we need to deal with when we have a team of teams. So we tried again with the community to pull people together and say, okay, as community leader, I would organize bug hunts where people from all teams would participate, and it would be both different functions. So it was not just the testers, it was the POs, developers, architects, these UX people that would participate in the bug hunt from each team, and we tried to team people up. We mostly got, of course, people with test interest participating, but it still gave this where we could see across teams and across functions, are we actually building something that gives a nice customer experience. And then we had to make some decisions about how do we test non-functional requirements tooling-wise, and that basically was, again, a community-led decision. Had some workshops, discussions, and discussions, but in the end, make a decision, and then the teams decided this is what we think we should do for now, and then we can try it out and revise later on. So we had big problems getting a coherent solution out, even though we were using the framework, and we tried to, with these, you can say, activities, to align a bit better on what it is we wanted to achieve and how we could achieve it. The other case is a different setup. Yeah, sorry, question?
The use of community of practices is prescribed in the SAFe framework, or do they say how many times they need to meet in each week, with actions they could take, how to document the agreements or something like that?
As far as I know, no, it doesn't say. So earlier, SAFe is coming in different versions. Over time it has developed. And in the version 4, which is the current version, communities of practice are described into more detail. It was not very, I think, in-depth described in version 3, which we were using at the time. And I think in general the communities of practice is often seen as a way to support the, you can say the professionalism around test, for example. So since people with test is in the teams, how do you actually talk to other people who like testing? And that's where the communities of practice come in, that you share experience with like-minded people. and share methodologies and tools and so on and so forth. But SAFE doesn't specify very prescriptively what should a community of practice do and what shouldn't it do. I think this about using it as a decision body to actually coordinate, I don't think that is the intention in SAFE normally. So I think we put more into the community of practice as a coordination mechanism than you will normally find it.
So who leads the forming the community of practices?
Yeah, so we decided, you can say on a management level, we decided we wanted to have some communities of practice, and then we had people volunteering as leaders, you could say. For the testing and quality in the first run, again, it was a supporting role for the teams, but it was obvious that we were not building a solution that we could release. And therefore we took the decision to say, well, the test leader will be the one accountable for the overall quality and will have the mandate to make sure that the teams are doing a minimum to get this solution to work, both short term and longer term. So it was not that the leader here would dictate, now we need to take this tool and do this, but would facilitate, but make sure that the teams understood we need to come to an agreement on this. As a leader, I don't care which one, because you are the ones who know what you need and what to do, but we need to make a decision and we need to find a tool or whatever, or we need to have the discussion, do we need one tool or is it okay we have 5 tools? So that we use that community to facilitate some of these quite difficult discussions that if it happens unstructured, they can take a very long time. Did that answer your question?
The frequency of meetings?
Yeah, so what we did here is we had a weekly meeting with a set agenda in the sense that people could send suggestions. Otherwise, as a leader, I would put the topics I thought we were having at hand, but always have space so that people could say, what is it you need? And we also used them in a cadence. So the first meeting in a PI, we were talking about the plans for the testing. And when we came towards the end of the PI, we were talking about how has the testing been going, what are we missing, can we help each other, what kind of integrations do we still need to do. So in that sense, we all were also coordinating with the agenda. You know, the teams, you know, we're planning, we need you to focus on your testing, have you thought about these things, have you talked to each other? That team needs to provide test data to this team, have you actually discussed that? Is it in your plans? That we facilitated here with 1 hour meeting once a week. And it was mandatory for the teams to participate, but the teams found out themselves who wanted to participate. So some teams had testers, one team sent their Scrum Master, another team sent their developer who was very interested in testing. So it didn't matter who you sent as a team, you decide, but you need to send someone. That was the only thing we had. And that is not something that you will get out of the framework. So that's just how we try to manage some quality problems or challenges we had by doing that. Ooh. Good. The second case is a bit different setup, and I think what is interesting here is here we actually had 3 trains. We had one train for generic general stuff that would go across all the things. That could be something like compliance. So no matter which customer segment you're working with, you have to be compliant. And then we had some trains focusing on each their customer segment. We had 5 teams, and all teams were distributed in some shape or form. One team, maybe it was only the PO, was not co-located with the team. In other teams, you had people sitting in 3 different countries. There was not a single team who had all the people in the same location. And basically the construct was that each team would deliver to each train. So as you can see, the train would be building or delivering solutions based on contributions from different teams, and each team would be contributing to 3 different trains. So that's a very different setup from the one in the first case that we had. And what the challenges were here was trying again to make solutions together, because a team of teams that are delivering to 3 trains was quite hard to organize. And we also had a bigger problem with how do we actually make sure that what we are doing is supporting that strategy that we talked about on the portfolio level and the value stream. How does that actually hang together when we are putting stuff out in small chunks on many different trains? And basically SAFE says, and that's a very important principle, about just like we want people to be dedicated to an Agile team, we also want teams and people to be dedicated to an Agile release train. We might have some teams on the train which have shared responsibilities between other teams, but in general we would want to have them on the train. And then single or common vision, mission, roadmap to actually make sure people work towards a common goal. That we had big difficulties with when people were delivering into 3 different trains, each with their maybe roadmap and vision, how to make that aligned. So we basically ended up saying, since we're not that many people, around 80, a lot of the things we do, we'll just do it as if we were one train. Although we know we're 3 trains, we will treat it as one train. We will have one PI planning event, not 3, and we will have the way we build our Scrum of Scrums and demos together. And the trains were primarily a way to make sure that we could budget and plan and communicate to stakeholders on the higher levels. So they had targeted communication. They could understand what this train is catering for my customer segment. That helped a lot from that perspective. Yes. And in SAFE and in general, we are working a lot with objectives, and trying to make it a bit more abstract would help everyone align towards what is it we're doing across the different things. And that, I think, is maybe something we don't think so much on team level. When we just work as an individual team, we might not think so much about our objectives because we are aligned, it's easy to have. But objectives can be very good at getting that alignment across several management layers to actually understand the things I'm talking about. This is what the teams are working on, and this is how this hangs together through the ethics, the features, and the objectives that we're delivering. Yeah. So back to the whole point of this discussion, does quality suffer? I do think, as you can see, it is a big framework. Do we need it all the time? If we do, there can be a risk that yes, for maybe a temporary period, we are spending all our attention on implementing this, and it might be difficult to get some of the things to work, which could impact on the quality. So I do think there is a risk. Although the case studies never talk about that, I think it's worth for us as practitioners to discuss what could the potential risks be. Is it because of SAFE? Well, I think SAFE has a lot of good things in the framework, things you need to do, but as a practitioner, the guidance you find on it is limited because it is a framework. We have in the framework also a lot of responsibilities outlined for quality, especially for the non-functional requirements for the architects. So in that sense, it has taken some of this stuff into account. And then it says this about, yes, you can have this quick launch strategy, and I think that is sounding very tempting for many people. Let's just jump in, and we'll just improve as we go. But once you start the training, it can be a really big thing. So there's a saying about a fool with a tool is still a fool. And I think this is a bit, it's not the framework's fault, but we have to be open-minded or open-eyed when we go in and do this. So the question the gentleman raised, why do I need SAFE? Do I really need it? And I really think that's the question. Do I need this big thing? Do I actually want to make this transformation if I'm in an organization where we've never done Agile before? Or can I get some really quick wins without it? Are we reasonably fit for the journey? Mindset-wise, are we either willing to take that big jump, or can we transform ourselves little by little? The basic BF PAMP is again about, are we organized in a way that supports this? Do we maybe have the basic tooling in place, the build pipelines and so on set up before we actually put 120 people to work? Because if the builds are down, there's 120 people who might not be working. So the basic things before we actually get the train rolling is a good thing to have in place. And it's about everyone on board, because once the train starts rolling, if you're not on board, you're not on the train, then it all falls together. So these are the things I would ask myself before doing this journey again. If I had to do it with someone else, say, do you really need to scale? Are we sure? And how fast, slow do you want to do it? Because if you want to do it fast, then you really need to buckle up, because we're going to go fast in order to get ourselves prepared for this. Thank you very much for your attention and for the good questions. So any questions? I don't know if we have time for questions.
Still time for one question.
One question, okay.
Thank you so much for this great talk. So you've made the point clear that basically the whole company is involved in implement SAFe. So from your C-level management down to the persons who write the code, right? So my question is there also a chance to implement SAFe incrementally and not just like a big bang?
Yes, definitely. So, is there a way to implement it incrementally? A lot of places I've heard on, they start with a, you can say, either single program of a certain size or a single department and try to make it work there. And then they see if that goes well, then they, gradually roll it out. So I haven't heard, no, that's not true actually. I think I have now one company in Denmark where they really said, okay, now we take the whole IT department and all the business with it, and we go SAFe. But the other places, it's always been sort of like a department or program with a number of people, launch one train, and then launch some more trains. So that's usually the strategy. Some people also say that they only use the program level, they don't use value stream and portfolio. And for others, they actually might start with portfolio and not do the trains, because they actually need to get their heads around how is it we're going to organize ourselves from a business perspective, because then we know how we're going to organize ourselves from an IT perspective, implementation. So no big bangs. It is improve and learn, but still doing the program level with 120 people can still be a big thing. It's not like saying 5 people, let's be an agile team. That's much easier.
Okay, unfortunately, I have a feeling that about SAFe we can discuss, ask, explain still 2 days, 3 days even. But time is running out. Next speaker, unfortunately, couldn't make it over here, but he will show his presentation via Skype. We will have a video conference